So we're on page Zion. And we're up to Tvilas Hazova. We talk about Tvilas Hazova. So the final maskana we came to is summarized by Tosfos and Niddah Lamed Gimel that Poletes is Keroa. It's a Tumas Re'iyah, not a Tumas Maga. And it's Soseres Yom Echad. Now Tvilas Niddah. Tvilas Hazova. Hazova could only become Tahora with Tvilah. And she needs a mikveh kosher, which means arbaim sa. The Rambam in Isurei Bia writes that from whence do we derive the tefillah of a zava? It says v'rachatzu b'mayim, and that's a binyan av l'chol tameh. So it's not that the Torah specified tefillah b'mikveh by a zava. The Torah has a general rule with regard to Tmeim, that a Tomei could never become Tar without Tvila. And that's called a Binyan Av. Umishtagia Yom HaShvi, according to the Torah law, already when she hits day 7, L'Sviras Shiva Nekiyim, she can be Tovelas. Because Mixas Hayom Kikula. Shenechshav Kemoshi Sof Hayom. It's as if the day has ended as a Yom Noki, and therefore she can go and be Tovelas. He writes here, V'hainu she'ena k'mo zav, she'tzorech tvila b'mayim chayim. Oh, in other words, we have here a contrast between Tvilas Zava and Tvilas Zav. Whereas in the case of Zav, we need what's called Mayim Chayim. It's got to be a spring, and not a pool, not a collection of water. In the case of a Zava, like every other Tameh, she needs a regular, classic Tvila, b'mikveh kosher, and it's a collection of water. No requirement of Mayim Chayim. And now, we're going to talk about Tefillah b'sof hayom. He says, Mikomakom imras adam li'achar mikan. So in other words, there's a very dangerous situation here, according to biblical law, because she can go to the mikvah already in the morning of the 7th, and then have an intimacy with her husband, and then, lo and behold, in that same afternoon, she sees dam after the biyah. But that dam is a dam of Re'iyah Soseres, and as it turns out, she's a Zava Gedola. So it's a very tricky situation here. You know, there's a real serious danger here. Sosra b'yonel mafreya. Oh, so now he says there is another opinion in the Tanoim Rabbi Yossi of Rasa Achar Kach Eina Soseres Min Yonel Mafreya. It doesn't seem like we accept Rabbi Yossi, but there is a minority opinion of Rabbi Yossi that once she counts Yom Shvi in the morning, because of Mixas Hayom Kikulo, if she sees Dam in that afternoon, that's not a stira. She's already completed Zayin Nikin. It's already Sof Hayom, Al Pi Allah, even though it's not Sof Hayom b'Metzius. And therefore, she would start a brand new status as a Zava, and his Bia was Beheter, because she hadn't seen Dam at that point, and she was already after the completion of Zayin Nikim. That's Rabbi Yossi. But the Chachamim reject Rabbi Yossi, and they say, no, there's a Re'iyah Soseres, Kol's man, she's in Yom Shvi, and Al Pi Din, it's like as if Yom HaShvi had passed, and it was a full day of Naki, but it's not really passing, it's a halachic category, and therefore there'd be a Re'iyah Soseres during the course of that day, which would now Lemafreya establish that his bia with her was a bia of a zava, a chi of kares. I don't know. You see, in terms of liability, whether he's culpable in Bezdin Shel Mala, I don't know. it could be that he has somewhat of a guilt because he took that chance. Or on the other hand, it could be there's no guilt at all because the Torah allowed him to have this relationship once she made her badika in the morning of the 7th, and it was Miksa Yom Kikulo. I don't know. V'darshu kein chachamim and akosim safra lo shivas yom v'achar titar darshu bo chachamim achar ma'aseh titar v'hainu li'achar asfir shel Miksa Yom titar. So she has an asiyah, which equals bedika, of Mikzas Hayom on the 7th day, and that's enough to be considered as if the entire day was Naki, and she could already be Matayr herself, because the pasuk says V'achar Titar, after that bedika on the morning of day 7. Interesting. The Chachamim don't want to take any chances here. They don't want to allow her to be Toveles on Yom Shvi, exposing herself and being vulnerable to the possibility that she'll have a Re'iyah Soseres after she went to the mikvah, which is going to completely obliterate and void the entire counting of 7 days of Nikiyah. So the Rabbana made a takana. She does not go to mikvah until Leil Shmini. We're not going to take any chances that maybe she'll see a Re'iyah Soseres. Okay, fine. He tells you that according to Tosfos, even Reb Shimon, Muteris min HaTorah, Reb Shimon agrees that Achar Titar, she can just do the B'dika on Yom Zayin, and then she goes to the mikvah, and the Rabbana made a takana, she should not go to mikvah until after nightfall, meaning going into the 8th day. Okay, fine. Now we're up to Tavla B'Shvi on the top of page Zion. Tavla B'Shvi, the Das Rabbi Shimon Arehi Asur B'Tashmish Yom HaShvi, V'nechlu Kurishonim Im Asura Gam L'Das Chachamim Acholkim Al Rabbi Shimon. Okay, so as I mentioned to you the other day, this requires that we go through the sugyas inside. I don't know here what he's talking about in footnote number Kuf Dalid, because now he's telling us that even according to Chachamim, she's asura b'tashmish b'yom hashvi. And he says, Mishum Tarbus Ra. I would assume that what he has in mind is that we don't want to take our chances and play around with the possibility of violating an Isa Kares in event that she'll see a Re'iyas Dama Soteres after the Bia. And this is where I think we got up to yesterday. I'm not sure. But Havas Karbana, B'yom HaShmini L'taros L'achar Sheshilmu Yemei Zayin Nikim, V'tavla B'leil Shmini, V'via Karbana, Shtei Torim V'shtei B'dayona, Echad Li'ola, V'echad L'chatos. Steve, I think that's what we got up to yesterday. And that's probably what you told me, but I misunderstood you. So at least I'm being very consistent. All right. Nechliku Rishonim. Oh, this is the real complicated. You remember that when we started our introduction to Niddah, we established that the difference between Niddah and Zava is that a Zava has 3 consecutive Re'iyos on 3 days, but one Re'iyah would be enough to make her into Niddah, and she's Tmeah and Asur L'Bayil for all 7 days, even though she had only one Re'iyah. So what's the difference between a Niddah and a Zava, meaning when do we say, well, that Re'iyah is a Re'iyah's Niddah, and it generates a Tumas Niddah, and when do we say, no, it's only Re'iyah of one of the three consecutive Re'iyahs required for a Zava to become a Zava Gedolah. So what we said was that you made Nidus, and then after the Yemei Nidus terminate, there's 11 days of Yemei Ziva, after which she goes back into Yemei Nidus. And now we get into this whole, I call it a balagan, about how do you know whether she's holding in Yemei Nidus or in Yemei Ziva. And on that, there's a major machlokes between the Rambam on the one hand and all other Rishonim on the other hand. So we're going to start with the minority opinion of the Rambam. In Isurei Bia, I think it says Perek Vav, but I can't make it out. It's either Perek Vav or Perek Zayin. Maybe in your copy, it's a little clearer. It's unbelievable. According to the Rambam, this setup of Yemei Niddah and then Yud Aleph Yemei Ziva is a recurring sequence that's set and fixed in stone from the very first time she becomes a Niddah. And the Gemara says that even a Ketana, even a newborn baby, could have a Re'iyas Dam Niddah. So could you imagine, from day one, she starts counting Yemei Niddah, and then if she sees Re'iyah after the Yemei Niddah have completed, then it's called Yud Aleph Yom, and again, she goes back to Niddah, and so forth and so on for the rest of her life. Minyan Yemei Niddah v'Zava he miyom rishon sherasa bo mi'olam ha'chetomos, from the day that she had her first Re'iyah's dam until the day she dies. Bein rasa b'hem, bein lo rasa b'hem. So imagine if the first let's say the first Re'iyah of Dam that she had was the day she was born. We'll just dramatize. We count now 7, 11, 7, 11 for the rest of her life. We will now already, from day one, it's going to be written on a Tudat Zahut, how to count Yemei Niddah and Yemei Zava for the rest of her life. Kigon, Sharasa Biyom Leidasa, on the very day that she was born, she had a Re'iyas Dam Niddah. Hare Monim Lo Shivas Yemei Niddah, we count 7 days of Niddah. Ve'achreim, and then follows 11 days of Ziva, and then automatically she goes back to 7 days of Niddah and on to 11 days of Zava. You can write this out with a computer program for the rest of her life. It's always set in stone. But again, all of this makes sense if we know exactly on which day she had her first Re'iyah. And then we calculated it. We put it into the computer. And by the way, this has nothing to do with counting Shemitah and Yovel and whether it's a Chodesh Me'ubar or a Chodesh Mole, whether you're going on the solar calendar or the lunar calendar. All that is totally irrelevant. It's 7-11. We think that there's a chain of supermarkets, of mini markets that they invented 7-Eleven. No, 7-Eleven came way before the supermarkets. 7-Eleven is the Rambam Shita in Yemei Niddah and Yemei Ziva. From the first day that she sees Re'iyas Niddah, we already kick off 7 days on the calendar of Niddah, followed by 11 days of Zava, followed by again 7 days of Niddah, and that's how it goes for the rest of our life. It's set in stone. You could only begin to imagine how complicated that's going to be to realize and to, what's the word I need to codify, these numbers, these days, on a calendar. When did she have her very first Re'iyas Niddah? Okay, now we get to all the other Rishon. He tells you, this is Rashi Shita, Tosu Shita, Ramban Shita, the Rashba Shita, the Ran Shita, V'od. Okay. So we have a who's list of Rishonim. Minyan Yemei Niddah. What's the next word here? It's a little bit erased in my page. Vizava, it should be probably. I don't know. It's erased. But anyway, let's read it like this. Minyan Yemei Niddah Vizava Nimnim Lefi Riasa Isha. It all depends on the Re'iyos during the course of her life. When did she see a Re'iyah? Shivas Yemei Niddah Li Olam Heim Chak Bi Osa Dam. So with regard to one dam that she saw, we're going to count Zayin Yemei Niddah. Kigon Rasa B'Yom HaRishon B'Chayeh Monim La Shivas Yemei Niddah V'Achadaseh Yemei Ziva. She doesn't go back to Yemei Shivas Yemei Niddah until she sees a Re'iyah. So imagine, let's say she sees dam on, we'll call it day number 1. On day number 8, she's in Yemei Ziva. She remains in Yemei Ziva until she sees another Re'iyas dam. So it's very possible that Yemei Ziva will last for weeks, in theory. I mean, let's say a normal woman has a cycle of 30 days. So, you add 7 to 11, you're up to day 18. According to the Rambam, once you hit day 18, she's in Yemei Niddah. According to all the other Rishonim, it depends whether she sees dam. If she has a cycle of 30 days, you're going to have to wait 12 days probably until she sees dam. And if she doesn't see dam in 30, until by day 30, in other words, 12 days later, she'll see dam on day 35. That's going to be the beginning of her 7 days of Niddah. It's not set in stone from the first Re'iyah of her life, because she doesn't leave the state of Yemei Ziva until she has a Re'iyas dam. And once she has a Re'iyas dam, that dam kicks off a new calculation of Yemei Niddah for 7 days, after which she starts Yemei Ziva. But when will Yemei Ziva terminate? That depends upon whether she has the next Re'iyah. In lo rasa bahem b'yeshet tira shuv maskil minyan Yemei Niddah. It's only when she sees dam that she begins counting Yemei Niddah. In rasa b'yom esrim v'sheish liri asa harishona. I'm not sure why he gives this example. Let's see if we can figure out why he gives this example. So there were 7 days, and then 11, that's day 18. And after day 18, she doesn't see dam until 26. Not exactly sure if anyone can figure out why he chooses the number 26, or he just pulled it out of a hat. I don't know. Arehi Niddah.
Was that not, that would be after Zion Nikim, or no?
Oh, wait. Well, let's just wait. Give me a second. I think I understand what you're saying, Steve. 1 second. In other words, according to the Rambam, we add 7 to 18. Oh, that's it. You got it. According to the Rambam, we're going to add 7 to 18. And day 26, she becomes, 1 second, 7, 18. And day 26, she's a Zava. Wait, did I get that right? 1 second. 7, 11 is 18. Yeah. On day 26, according to the Rambam, she's a Zava. According to the other Rishonim, she's a Niddah. Unbelievable. Who would think that you could have a machlokes Rishonim about such a fundamental question about whether a woman is a Niddah or a Zava? Well, thank you very much, Steve, because now I understand why he chose the numbers 26. Because it's 7, 11, and 7, which gives you 25. Did I get that right? 7, 11, and 7 is 25. So she completes, according to the Rambam, her Yemei Niddah with day 25. Day 26, that would make her into a Zava. According to all the other Rishonim, if the second Dam Niddah in this whole series that we talked about was on day 26, in other words, from day 1 of her first Re'iyah till day 26, she didn't see any Dam Niddah, then that Dam that she sees on day 26 makes her into a Niddah. And as I said before, if she doesn't see for another 2 weeks, then she becomes a Niddah 2 weeks later. Hare he Niddah on number 26, Velo Zava, like the Rambam would insist. Why? Because she went 7, 11, 7, and on 26 she starts the new cycle of 11 days of Zava, according to the Rambam. So that's what he writes here. Meaning the Rambam Shita, she's already in the second round of Yemei Ziva. And if she sees Riyah on day 26, she's a Zava. And the Rishonim rejected, and they say, no, she doesn't leave the status of Zava until she becomes a Niddah. She has a Riyas Dam. That's the key concept. Riyas Dam makes her now into a Niddah. And she didn't see a second Riyah until day 26 of the first Riyah. And therefore, on day 26, she becomes a Niddah. Now, the truth is that according to all the Rishonim, it's a lot easier, I think, maybe I'm wrong about this, but it should be a lot easier to determine whether this dam it makes her into a Niddah or a Zava. Because it's not a matter of, calculating the calendar of 7, 11, et cetera, from the day that she was born. I mean, from the day that she saw her first Re'iyah. Let me just figure this out. Let's say she sees Dam, and we're going to assume. Okay, there's still a piece of the puzzle missing. Let's see, L'deyazu, Kemoche minyan yimei anida, ena maschil li olam b'shoshi zava gedola. So it means that she has to terminate her status as a Zava before the Re'iyah becomes a Re'iyah Stam Niddah, which means she needs Zayin Akiyim. So she became a Zava with 3 consecutive days of Re'iyah. She became a Zava Gedol. She needs Zayin Akiyim. And then after Zayin Akiyim terminate, then any Re'iyah subsequent to that makes her into a Niddah. Elamisha Safra Shiva Nakiyim Uzivasa Kigon. Rasa Biyom Rishon B'Chayela Harimonim Lo Shiva Simei Niddah. Be'achadasar Yemei Ziva. Rasa Shuv Be'achadasar Yemei Ziva Shlosha Yomim Ritzufim. So again, she saw a Re'iyas Niddah Biyom Rishon B'Chayel. Okay, now after 7 days, she starts counting 11 days of Ziva. So let's say during Yemei HaZiva, she saw 3 times consecutive, on 3 consecutive days. One second. Is ein maschilim limnos la biyom chasar. So we're up to number 19. Let's see, 7. Oh yeah, 7 and 11. So she finished her Yemei Ziva with 7 plus 11 is 18. And now on the 19th day, she should become a Niddah. No. She does not become a Niddah if she sees on the 19th day. So it's not 11 days, period, meaning, I shouldn't use that word, right? 11 days, and then after the 11 days, she sees dam as a niddah. That's not true. She has to leave the state of zava and be mitayr herself from the state of zava before her dam could qualify as dam niddah. So let's say, for example, right, she had 3 re'iyos consecutively during Yemei Aziva. Let's say, I'm just trying to pick numbers here. Let's say that, let's see if this works out. I'm just going to pull it out of my head. Let's say on day 3 of Yemei Zava, she sees a re'iyah. And she sees 3 consecutive re'iyos on 3 days. Is days 3, 4, and 5. It's 5. Now she's a Zava Gdola, for 7 days. That takes her to day 12. So you would think that if she has a re'iyah on day 12, again, it's really not day 12, it's day 19, but let's call it day 12 with regard to Yemei Aziva. So that should be a re'iyah dam niddah. No. She was a Zava Gdola, we said, from day 3 till day 12, right? 3 days and then 7. No, 1 second. So those 7 days were Nikiyim. Well, let's start again. Let's say she sees, right? She sees 3 days consecutively at the end of the Yemei Ziva. Let's call it 9, 10, and 11. So the next Riyah's dam that will set her up as a niddah will only be after Zayin Nikiyim. So that means that if she had her Re'iyah Ziva on day 9 of Yemei Ziva, day 10, and day 11, any dam that she sees in the next 7 days will be dam Ziva, even though she's past the 11 days of Yemei Ziva. Because Yemei Ziva is not just 11 days, Yemei Ziva is 11 days minimum, and it's extended beyond 11 days in an event that she's a Zava Gdola and she needs Zayin Nikiyim. She will only become, let me say it this way, her dam will only become dam niddah, according to the halacha, after Zayin Nikiyim. Now he adds the word vititar mizova. If I understand correctly, when he adds those 2 words, it means it's not enough Zayin Nikiyim, she has to go to the mikveh, which hopefully we assume she went on Leil Shmini after the Zayin Nikiyim. But let's say she didn't go to mikveh for whatever reason, she's still a Zava. One, as long as she is Tmeya Tuma Zava, she cannot see a Re'iyah, which will start and kick off Nidus. Ach b'komakom l'divrei hakol, monim yemei niddah, af b'shah shehi zava ketana. Oh, so this is interesting. Let's say on the 11th day of Yemei Ziva, she had a Re'iyah. She becomes a Shomeres Yom Keneged Yom. If she sees Dam on the next day, she becomes a Niddah. Just 1 second. Ach mikomakom l'divrei hakol, monim yemei niddah, Af b'shashi zava ketana. I think what I said is correct. So if she sees on day 11 of Yemei Ziva, which would be day 19, let's say. No, day 18, I mean. So then, if she sees the next day, she becomes a Niddah. So this halacha, Acheti Taher, only applies to a Zava Gedola. Her status as a Zava Gedola precludes Dam Nidus. You follow what I mean by precludes? Meaning, as long as she's a Zava Gedola, her Dam is called Dam Ziva and will not qualify and it will not be defined as Dam Niddah. But if she's a Zava Ketana and then she sees Dam out of the framework of the 11 days of Ziva, that Dam is Dam Niddah. Interesting, because this touches on the difference between Zava Gedola and Zava Ketana. I mean, we always spoke about the fact that Zava Ketana just needs one Yom Naki, because she only had one or two consecutive Re'iyos, whereas a Zava Gedola requires Ayin Nikiyah. Other than that, we had an absolute equation between the status of a Zava Ketana and that of a Zava Gedola. But here we see clearly there's a difference between a Zava Ketana and a Zava Gedola. The period of Zava Gedola is a period of time which is mufka. It's completely excluded from Dam Nidus. Again, it's all halachic categories. We're not talking biological terms. But Zava Ketana is a status that she has of Tumah, but it does not preclude Dam Niddah. Nechleku Rishonim. All right, now we have machlok. This is already more complicated. So let's make a note of where we got up to here on the bottom of Zion right column, which would be for Sunday, Mirza Hashem. Now, I don't know, Steve, we have the next page or not?
Yeah, if pages 8 to 11, then I'll send out.
Oh, you'll send out in an email. Okay. So that we know we have, in event that the snow, is still a problem. Let me take a minute of your time